So the other day I had an epiphany. I was scrolling mindlessly through my phone as one does, and I came across this monstrosity, The Fairly Odd Parents reboot, and it was just as bad as I expected it to be.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Mindless drivel plot lines, flashy art style, and an overt unfaithfulness to the source material. And I realized, these phenomena are not unique to the Fairly Odd Parents. These symptoms carry on to many remakes and reboots that have sprouted from Hollywood in the last few years, whether it's animated or live action, movie or TV show. And if this were just a one-off thing in media, I probably wouldn't be making this video, but this is a repeated cancer that is spreading to more and more properties, and is only destructive in nature. And so I gotta take the mantle and expose just what makes these properties so inherently bad. Let's go. It was originally the Fairly Odd Parents trash reboot number 1 that inspired me to make this video, but now they went and made another one. And when it's animated, that's where I draw the line. I'm old enough to remember back in Yale 2016 when everyone was trashing the new reboot at the time, Teen Titans Go. Then it was the Powerpuff Girls, Ben 10 reboot, Rise of TMNT, the list goes on. No one really respects reboots as an inherent property, especially in the manner that they're handled in our modern era. It's almost a safe opinion these days to say, ooh, Hollywood unoriginal, Hollywood bad. But when you take a deeper look at it, you realize it's not just about the unoriginality. These Disney reboots do more than just rip off the original for monetary gain. No. They actively disrespect the source material while they do it. They have to warp the brand to their liking, whether it's for monetary, social, or storytelling purposes, if you really want to give them that credit. This Teen Titans Go syndrome has only gotten worse nowadays, because instead of just telling unfunny stories, modern reboots, especially in the animated realm, aim to purposely disrespect the original vision. Starting off with the fact that the original creators don't want this kind of stuff, almost ever. We've all heard of how Steven Hillenburg never really wanted a reboot of SpongeBob, but ever since his late passing, Nick has capitalized on 2 already, with both thankfully pulling in little to no ratings. When a reboot is properly won by the creators, it usually does quite well, and actually delivers true to the vision. But when it doesn't, it's just a floundering attempt to show what was good and unique and cash in on someone else's creation. Let's give it bright, saturated animation to the point where kids get a corneal ulcer. Why not? Kids like colors, right? I feel like everything I'm saying only relates to reboots post-2010, because prior to that, most reiterations weren't like this. Most were better than the originals, and actually kept gritty tones with cool brooding art styles. Now it's just a rainbow contest to see which show is brighter than the rest. Maybe that'll keep the kiddies in their seats a little longer. Let's make all the characters flanderized and dumb while we're at it. Kids connect to dumb people more, right? It also gives us a cheap way of actually creating humor. Stupid people are funny. These modern reboots just go back to square one while ignoring all the story arcs that preceded them, with a cheap looking animation style and much shallower characters. And they expect folks to be all on board and excited when they announce one. Don't forget to force memes and trends, disgusting imagery, and weird detailed faces. They'll often dish the grand arcs and storylines for a slice-of-life episodic show, bereft of any substance or long-term stakes. And look, I've made a whole different video explaining how being more mature or focused on story doesn't necessarily make a show better. That video gives a lot more nuance than I'm frankly giving here, but listen, part of a reboot is a fan service that you never really have to deliver to the original fans of the old property. You can't just say you're delivering something new for the current generation while abandoning the people who made your franchise what it is by watching all those years ago. Don't ruin our childhoods for your own creative laziness. It just makes you ask, why? Not to mention how they unnecessarily have to, all of a sudden, change everything about the show. I mean, no one wants to talk about it, but the current bandwagon is the whole race swapping thing that they'll have to do with animated characters. April O'Neil, Timmy Turner, Velma, etc. Then there's the whole voice actress thing. Remember when Hank Azaria was shamelessly ousted from playing Apu in The Simpsons because he wasn't the race of the character? Because I do. It's almost like actors are supposed to portray things that they're not. Here's another shocker. This guy is actually not an anthropomorphic sponge. I mean, it's not just Azaria. This happened to Mike Henry too for playing Cleveland Brown. Allison Brie literally apologized for playing Diane from BoJack because the character was Vietnamese. Oh, so if a Vietnamese person has to voice that character and she feels so sorry about it, will she donate all the money she made on that show to Vietnamese charities? Or no, is it just a bunch of false outrage for a non-issue no one genuinely cares about? When everything is racial, that's the only thing I can see when watching. I never saw Blade as a black character, or Cyborg, or Gerald, or Static Shock. A lot of my favorite characters are people of various ethnicities and racial tones. The black female Timmy Turner is clearly just a cheap attempt to reboot this property without any other significant pitches for change. I mean, for the diversity folks, there must be a point where this hurts the cause more than it helps it. And this video isn't just about the new race swapping phenomenon, but it's an extremely prevalent symptom of a larger issue, which ties into the lack of respect for staying faithful to the original property. Maybe Butch Hartman wants Timmy to be race and gender swapped, which is why he has absolutely no direct involvement in the creative department of the project. I find that unlikely. It's absolutely insulting to ruin a person's original vision of a character just because people want to see themselves on screen. These people are too uncreative to create their own original stories, so they need to ruin ruin existing stuff to be able to call themselves inclusive and hip with the times. This absolutely also hinders the story and episode quality, as the main selling point here is the obvious element that's right in front of us, but no one's allowed to acknowledge it for some reason. I mean, watch a single episode of Rise, A New Wish, Patrick Star, or Camp Coral, and you'll see that. Even those shows are unfaithful to the source material. It's not just about the race swapping issue. Being unfaithful has different forms, and the reason I focus on that issue is because it's the most prevalent at this point in time. Maybe 10 years ago, the discussion was about a completely different form of unfaithfulness. Still, some shows suffer from that. I mentioned SpongeBob, there are plenty of other examples. I just despise seeing a person's work be disrespected when they likely sacrificed like hell to turn into a reality. And some studio exec can just demand a reboot of it for ratings and completely change the original character into something just to appeal to the bandwagon. In live action, you could claim that the actor's audition and skill level determine who gets the role, and that would be fair, but it's totally different with an animated character made of pixels. Although even that's under question these days when the new Snow White or Ariel can't even sing but are preferred over tons of other actors. I don't know, am I crazy? I feel like I'm living in the Emperor's New Clothes. People just disagree with this because it's the right thing to say or whatever, but most people would probably agree with these common sense points deep down. When a character is good, race shouldn't matter, nor should the new spin you put on the character, whether it's a gimmicky change in the age, the gender, the design more broadly, or their persona and attitude in a larger sense. Even things like the Lion King remake piss me off because they clearly capitalized on this and it worked by turning one of the greatest animated films in the 90s into a National Geographic documentary with the occasional reminder that it is in fact a Lion King reboot. When they're more faithful to the source material like Cinderella or Beauty and the Beast, it doesn't bother me as much. But I don't think Rob Minkoff and Roger Allers crafted the 94 masterpiece with their own hands just to expect it to get a live action CG remake when it's pretty much 100% animation or portraying real animals for some reason. God, it's all so stupid. Anyway, can't wait to see a Static Shock or Spawn movie, and while they're at it, it wouldn't hurt to race swap one more movie, would it? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe, and follow me on all the socials to keep up with my tomfoolery. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you beautiful ladies and jellyfish in the next one.